And welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is the COP, condition of probation prisoners, and the impact that it's having on the jails. Particularly important right now because we're in the last week at the legislature and they have some decisions to make about funding. When we finish the show, I will talk to you about things that you can do to help sway the decisions of your legislators to make sure that this very important topic gets addressed. Joining us for this section of our show, Sheriff Terry Thompson from Weber County, Sheriff Jim Tracy remains from Utah County, and Sheriff Cory Pulsipher from Washington County. What I want to toss out on the table is what impact this has on the counties. I want people to understand at an emotional level how much pressure it puts on you as sheriffs and how you deal with it.
Within our county, we have 900 inmates. 170 is the daily count this year of the COP prisoners. That cost is $72.25 for each prisoner per day. On the reimbursement that is currently at the level of funding, it's about $27. So there's a shortfall there per day per inmate. The second thing that we have going is that our county had to bond for a $23 million expansion of the jail. If I had had 170 less prisoners per day, we would not have built that jail. Expansion saved that money from the bond. We also are underrepresented up at the state prison. We're 22% of the state population, about a little over 500,000 in Utah County, yet we have about 9 to 10% of the state inmate population at the prison. Obviously, some of those that should have gone to the prison would be under the care and cost of the Department of Corrections are still in our jail as COP.
And even if they had been contracted back as a contract prisoner, that rate would be much higher from the state, almost double.
Almost double what we're getting. That's correct. So those are the direct monetary impacts that occur with us.
Well, that's obviously because the judges are making decisions to send them on probation out on COP as opposed to turning them over to corrections. Is that?
That's correct, and I think that's something that all of us can address, that we do have good programs. When a judge really wants to keep tabs of that individual and his progress as far as an inmate, I think we have some specifics that...
Yeah, Cory, you just recently had, like today, had a conversation with one of the judges.
I spoke with Judge James Shoemate, 5th District Court Judge, and he uses the condition of probation when he wants to try and make a difference in the inmate's life. We get a lot of these guys come through that don't have education, they don't have their GED. If he sends them to the prison, Board of Pardons takes over and makes the decisions as to how long they're up there. Whereas if he sends them to me, it says as a condition of probation, you will be within that facility for a year. While you're there, you'll get your GED. While you're there, you'll attend Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or life skills courses and these programs and things we have available. The court feels that they have more control on trying to make a difference in the inmate's life, and that's why they send them as a condition of probation.
We get the part of the judges wanting to actually make a difference, but is he aware of the impact it places on you?
Yes, and we've had that discussion many times. We looked at doing that ordinance that would limit the amount that we had, and if we put that in place, we'd have had to turn people loose. And my county commissioners basically says that, well, we're not willing to put them back out on the street. They do need these programs, they do need this assistance, they need to pay for their crimes. But the courts aren't seeing that that's happening when they send them up to the prison, so they're using the county jails to accomplish that.
Sheriff Thompson, you have a unique way in Weber County of dealing with this issue.
Yeah, we share some of the same concerns, obviously, and we had gotten to a point where while we have an 888-bed facility, about a third of those beds were being occupied by COP. We were pushing 250. And so it made for some real management decisions. It was very difficult for us to manage those inmates appropriately and properly. And so with those difficulties in mind within the facility, we got with our county commissioners and we got with our judges. We met with them and explained those concerns to them and laid that problem out for them and asked them to help us find a solution. In the end, together, we decided that a county ordinance would be a good way to address that. So we got with our county commissioners and we looked at the management of not just COP, but all the different classifications of inmates within the jail and how do we manage those appropriately. And we passed an ordinance that limits each number and each type of inmate, federal, state, COP, local, within the facility so that we could manage it appropriately. And part of that was limiting the number of COP inmates. So we've dropped our number of condition of probation inmates from about 225, 250, down to currently about 150, 160.
Yeah, it sounds like a simple solution, but if the judges continue to send somebody, what do you do?
Well, they understand that part of that process is that when we reach that maximum number of inmates, COP inmates within the facility, when one comes in, one goes out. So they understand that. They know that, that when that happens, an inmate will be released, and they get a report every single day. They know how many are sentenced from each judge, from each courtroom, how many are in there, and what that count is. So they know, by looking at that count each day, whether there are vacancies in those beds or not.
Now that you've had that in place for a while, are you always at limit, or are you sometimes off of it a little bit?
You know, good question. We have been fairly close to that limit. It's varied. Right now we've got a few beds that are open, so they've certainly got some room to work with it on the judge's end. But they also know that when they're released, they go to a supervised probationary status. They're just not being released out onto the street. They're still under the jurisdiction of AP&P, and they still take them and still monitor them, and they still have that supervised status once they're out.
Sheriff Tracy, how are you, well, for you two, how are you dealing with the shortfalls? Because obviously, if you have a cost and you're getting half of what that cost should be, and your county commissioner said we're not going to turn people loose, then how are you making up the shortfalls? You know, bake sales or what, you know?
Well, I don't know how you make up the shortfall. It's like it costs you a certain amount to run the facility. We have a responsibility to our community to protect them. We just have to pay for it. We'd like to see some reimbursement back from the state to help. I think the state is shirking their responsibility, but I think we're also making a difference. And so even though we support what the courts are trying to do, there is the other end of who's having to pay for it, and it's a big problem.
That's the dilemma, because it goes back to the county taxpayer. That's the bottom line. If it's not coming in from the state, then it's coming out of the general fund, which runs the funding for the jail. So it goes back to that individual taxpayer of the county.
See, basically, what I see happening here is that you have a bunch of state legislators that don't want to raise taxes. And so they want to get reelected, and so they say, okay, well, all you get is the scraps that are left over on the table. And they throw it off on the counties, and then the county commissioners basically have to look at it and say, well, we've got to make up the shortfall. I guess we're going to have to raise taxes. And so you've got this battle of nobody wants to bite the bullet to pay for a very serious core function within the county. Have I basically summed that up correctly?
Pretty much. I think if the numbers that we're getting in the financial end of this from the state would become more stable with ongoing funds, so that there was less of a fluctuation, I know I, as the sheriff, would quit complaining about it, because it would become something that I could put in the budget from year to year that'd be more stable, and it wouldn't be the unknown. And that's what the commissioners are looking for too, is something that's less volatile year to year.
And in our case, by implementing that county ordinance, that's helped us to do that, so that we can manage that budget.
And we've implemented the ordinance. We haven't triggered it yet. But if the numbers continue to climb, which they have, then we're going to have to trigger that.
Gentlemen, thank you for your input on it. We appreciate it. We're going to come back to the county seat here in just a minute. We will address further options that might be taken at state level. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
What brings you to St. George?
Business meeting.
Staying long?
Just here for the day. Quick in and out.
Hey, I just landed. Can we meet in a half an hour?
Oh, too bad. Why so fast?
Stay any longer? We'll run out of things to do. On second thought.
Buddy, something's come up. I'm gonna need another hour. Can we push the meeting till noon? I am definitely gonna need to reschedule. I should have booked a weekend.
Native Americans called it the land of the sleeping rainbow. It's a place of unparalleled enchantment, where history, splendor, and industry meet. We call it Sevier County. Experience the Paiute Trail by ATV. Explore 7 national parks, all within a few hours' drive. Gaze down at the world from an entirely new perspective. Join us in Sevier County and discover real Utah. Come, explore the Paiute Trail and beyond.